Hi, Fairfax County. Guess what? Election day begins today in Fairfax County in Virginia because absentee voting for the November 7th election actually starts today. It actually began at 8 o'clock this morning when our election chief, Augustine Teal, announced that voting had begun. It's very exciting. Yes, folks, it's September, but we're already moving toward November 7th. So I want to talk about, because absentee voting has been so robust in our county, talk about a little bit about what the difference is between absentee voting and early voting, which is at other states and counties around the country, and tell us a little bit about how that is. And oh, I'm sorry, and this is Cameron Sasnett, our general registrar, and actually, so you know, we are in the satellite voting area in the government center, and we'll talk a little bit more because we have about our other locations where we'll be having absentee voting. And then also, if you have any comments or questions about absentee voting, please provide those in, and if you send us those questions or comments before the end of this Facebook Live, we'll be able to get back to you while we're talking here. So anyway, back to you, Cameron.
Okay, so Lisa, just like you said, there is a difference between absentee voting and early voting. If you go to DC or Maryland, they have early voting. And the difference between early voting and absentee voting is early voting is simply allows you to show up and you actually get to vote. Absentee voting, you do have to have a reason why you're absentee voting. And Virginia is quite gracious. We have 20 different reasons that allow voters to be able to vote absentee. And you know, the reasons range quite widely from just commuting out of the county, which nobody in Fairfax commutes outside the county. But it also includes if you're taking care of somebody, or if you're sick or disabled yourself, you can vote absentee. In addition to that, you know, there's a lot of things such as military service. Students are allowed to vote absentee, which is really great that we have 45 days of absentee voting before the election, because students typically will come home on fall break. So it's kind of interesting, and we saw it last year where we saw the UVA kids come in one week, and then the next week was the Virginia Tech kids. So you know, we keep a full list on the application itself. When you come in to vote absentee in person, we have a nice big poster that'll tell you what it is. Some of them require a little bit of supporting information, some of them don't. But at the end of the day, the difference between absentee voting and early voting is that absentee voting requires you to let us know that you're not going to be at your polling place on election day, why, and sometimes where you're going to be.
Exactly. And as you can tell, Cameron and I are both sporting our I voted stickers because we both, one of the reasons is if you are going to be working for more than the 13 hours when, or 11 hours I think is the cutoff during the election. So it's an early day and a very late night that actually usually goes into the next day. So that's what we were able to absentee vote this morning.
Well, you have that category. So if your work day and you work inside of Fairfax County, let's say you're not commuting outside the county, it's going to exceed the hours that the polls are open, that qualifies you to vote absentee. And it doesn't have to just be your work day. So if you work inside Fairfax and you add your commute on that and you won't be able to make it to the polls between 6 and 7 a.m. on November 7th, you get to vote absentee. So that's
okay, that was my valid reason.
That was your valid reason. My reason is, again, 20 different reasons, lots of opportunities to be able to vote absentee. So being the registrar, electoral board member, or one of our many thousands of election officers who serve in different places around the county, they get to vote absentee because they may not be working inside their home polling place on election day. So, you know, we start adding that on, and then a few other ones, like I mentioned, military service is a big one. And any of those reasons can allow you to vote either absentee here at our office, which we started today, or you can vote absentee by mail.
And I'm a big fan as a parent of a college student that please let your students know that if they're home for fall break and they still want to get that experience of voting in person and instead of by mail, which we'll go over to please look over the hours and locations when they're home and come in. And that's if they're registered in Fairfax County. They need to be registered in the county and not at the school. If they're registered at the school, they need to vote there.
So yeah, you will vote absentee in person at whatever location or locality that you're registered at. So like you mentioned, if you went down to Virginia Tech and you registered at Virginia Tech, you're going to have to vote absentee there, or you'll actually vote in person on election day there.
Right.
So your absentee in person will follow you to where your registration is. And, kind of important is that, since this is kind of going out to folks just in the area, we are very transient, very commuting areas.
Right.
So just Fairfax County residents who are registered in Fairfax can use our locations to absentee vote. If you live in Arlington, or if you live in Alexandria, Prince William, Falls Church, or even the city of Fairfax, you'll have to go to their office to cast your absentee ballot.
Exactly. So you have to be a Fairfax County registered voter.
Yep.
Okay. So we're going to walk you through what it's like for anyone who hasn't absentee voted in person and the steps that you go through, so you're a little familiar with how the process works. So Cameron, can you walk us through what you walk in the door and you'll be greeted by one of our election officers, and what is the first step?
So the first step is, of course, everything with government requires a little bit of paperwork.
Right.
It's actually a pretty straightforward form. This is the Virginia absentee ballot application. So you'll put your name, last four of your socials required. We've already helped you out and kind of pre-filled a little bit of information, such as the date of the election. We've also, if you come here, most forms will be highlighted with the things that you have to fill out for us. What's really important is that reason code. Like we were discussing earlier, we've got the 20 different reasons. Again, student attending college, you've got spouse of a person attending college, military voters. Again, if you are expecting within the next couple months to become a mother, the wonderful My Pregnancy is one that can be used as well. Some of them do require supporting information. If you have any questions, my staff is going to be absolutely fantastic and help you out and make sure we get that right information.
Right.
You're going to sign it after you put your address, and then you put today's date. And then we're going to go check you into the system.
Okay, great. And also, folks, so you know, if you want to know if you meet any of the 20 reasons, a real good place to go is vote.virginia.gov, the state site, and they'll list out there and have lots of information about the eligibility requirements there. So, okay, so we've done step one, and now we're going to do step two.
So we take the form over, and we're going to come over here. We're going to hand it to one of our fantastic staff members who is going to look up your information in the Virginia Election Registration Information System.
Right.
So we're checking a couple things. Are you registered in Fairfax County? Are you eligible for an absentee ballot? So, have you requested one by mail? Has it already been sent to you? If you had, it kind of changes a little bit of that situation here. But if none of those are flagged, then what we can do is go ahead and process you. We mark you in on the system. They're going to hand the form back to you, and then what's going to happen
is they're going to ask for a photo ID. This is what I used this morning. I have a government photo ID. They will ask you for that. You will need that for in-person absentee voting as well as what you do on election day at the polls. So don't forget to bring your photo ID when you come to absentee vote. Absolutely correct.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that. Virginia driver's license, probably the most common ID that's used. You can use the work ID. Mm-hmm. So we're kind of lucky that our work ID actually is also a government-issued ID.
Right.
But if you have an employer from out of state, let's say you work in Maryland and you have an employer ID from Maryland, that is completely acceptable. However, if you have a Maryland driver's license, that's not. It has to be a Virginia driver's license. You can bring in a United States passport. The students that we're talking about coming home from college, they can use their college ID as long as it's from a school from within Virginia.
Right.
And you can even use student IDs from high schools in Virginia as well, whether it's a public or a private school. Federally issued IDs are completely acceptable as well, but what's really important about any of the IDs is that they can't be expired by more than a year. And so with that, always check it before you come. And if you don't have an ID that's acceptable, it's quite all right if you show up, because the great thing about what our operations allow us to do is we can make you an ID right upstairs in the office. We'll make sure that you get an opportunity to vote today. And any of our satellite locations will also have that capability as well.
Right, exactly. Exactly. So we've done 1 and 2, and we now have the ballot. He has checked in, and now we're going to, the application. Now we're going to be picking up the ballot.
So one of the things they also check when they are checking you in is all of your correct district information. So we need to know what congressional district you live in, what House of Delegates district, Senate district, what precinct you're in, so that we get you the right ballot. So, again, the state elections, everybody gets to vote on governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general. But there's a couple other things on the ballot this year that are dependent upon where you live, such as your House of Delegates district. So it's going to be really important. They put that at the bottom of the application. And we're going to turn this right into Ben here. It may not be Ben when you come in, but don't worry, everybody's going to be just as qualified. They're going to look over the application and they're going to grab the ballot. So would you mind just grabbing me a 37th? So you're going to get a ballot right here. They're going to make sure that you recognize that it is the correct district for you. So I live in the 37th, and you can see the 37th House of Delegates races on there. Lieutenant Governor, Governor, Attorney General. What's also really important is that we have a bond referendum on the back of the ballot. Now this bond referendum is to allow the schools, Fairfax County, to contract the debt, borrow, and issue capital improvement monies in the amount of $315 million. So you'll be able to answer yes or no. One thing that is a little bit different, and folks will actually notice this, and they started to see it in some of our earlier elections, is we have a few more languages on our ballot this year. So in December last year, the United States Census acknowledged that our Vietnamese community in Fairfax County is now qualified to have information in Vietnamese. And our Korean community also was just under the required threshold, so we decided to include those as well. So when you see all these languages on the ballot and in your polling places, it's because of the Department of Justice, the United States Census Bureau, the Voting Rights Act in 1965, as well as a policy that our electoral board locally made to include that fourth language.
Right, and promoting accessibility for voting.
Yep.
Okay, so you have your ballot, and then you would go to the voter would then proceed over to one of our privacy areas where you would fill it out. We have paper ballots, folks, and so you'll be filling it out, filling in bubbles, and I'll have Cameron come show you.
So I'm not going to vote because I already voted today, but typically you would come in here, you would use a regular ink pen, and you'd fill in the bubble to the left of your choice. And so there are actually instructions on the ballot itself that will tell you how to fill out a ballot appropriately. Now, if you make a mistake filling out your ballot, it is quite all right, because the great thing with our system is that if I did make a mistake, I can turn it in and say, may I have a new ballot because I made a mistake? And they'll take the ballot, they'll give you a new one, but if you did not make a mistake, the next step is to go and actually cast the ballot.
Right, but it would be in a folder. You would get a folder for privacy, so the election officers wouldn't see what your vote was. So there is privacy, and then you would take it over.
So Lisa, these are our DS200 scanners. Yes. This is the equipment that we bought a couple years ago. There's a little bit of discussion about the security of election systems. We talked a lot about that last year. What's great is at the end of the day, these ballots right here are paper ballots. They're marked with an ink pen, so it is very difficult to hack these. And then there's a secure bin down here that will collect all the ballots. And all this does is it tabulates the bubbles that you fill in there. So you would insert the ballot here, and you would watch the count on the machine go up by one to acknowledge that you had actually cast your ballot. And you'll see a great little thank you for voting message right there. And of course the next step, and probably the most important, is to get one of these guys, which is an I voted sticker. No election is complete with an I voted sticker.
Right, got to have the souvenir.
We tried once to do a little cost savings, and we said, it's a small election, we're not going to do the I voted stickers. It's probably the most amount of complaints. So it's not a whole lot that we can give people for voting, but these stickers, we'll make sure that you get one.
Okay, great. And also, so you can see on there too, we've had 18 voters so far this morning. And in 2013, I believe we had close to 30,000 absentee voters. So we're expecting at least that kind of turnout for this year. So we'll see what happens. If you know who you want to vote for, you might want to not wait until the deadline of November 4th for your in-person absentee voting and come a little earlier. Our folks are here to help you out. So I wanted to, one of the things that we talked about too is not just in-person absentee voting, but our mail-in voting for people who aren't able to come into any of our satellite locations. Can we walk over here and we can walk people through how to do the...
So just so everybody knows, I'm turning this ballot back into Mr. Ben there. He's asleep.
And this, we do have to be, you have to be very careful when you're filling out your mail-in absentee ballot. So can you talk us through how that works?
Okay, well, if you request an absentee ballot to be mailed to you, you're going to get an envelope that looks similar to this, other than it'll have your name, as well as a postage on there.
Right.
What's nice is that the state of Virginia has actually started utilizing a new system that has intelligent mail barcodes on the outgoing mail.
Okay.
And so that intelligent mail barcode actually allows you to track your ballot as it's making its way towards you. It does some other stuff, so we can actually keep an eye on, see where everything's at in the mail stream.
Right.
So if we see some things being held up, we can give a little nudge to a particular post office. But that's a great feature. Voters will be able to have access to that through vote.virginia.gov. But inside that envelope, what you're going to have is a few things here. You're going to have a return envelope, okay? So interesting about this, it's going to already have a label with your actual address and some information.
Great.
We don't put postage on it. That is up to the voter. So I think, we've discussed this sometimes about, some people don't know where to buy stamps, especially younger voters. So you do have to get a stamp. So if you request an absentee ballot, I highly recommend that before it's on its way to you, get a stamp so you're able to return it.
Right.
Okay?
Good thing to know, college students. Ask your parents to mail you some stamps.
So this is one thing that's going to be in there. It's going to be the envelope that you return everything in. You're also going to have instructions. So it's going to walk through everything step by step. It's actually 12 different steps. And it will tell you exactly what to do with your ballot. Make sure that everything is filled out correctly. So you're also going to have what we call our A envelope. Okay, this will be a sealed envelope, and it'll tell you ballot within. It'll have a stamp on it. It just helps us identify which ballots we are putting into here.
Right.
Okay, so if you decide not to vote your absentee ballot, you just return this unopened. It helps us identify that. But this will be a sealed envelope, and this is where your ballot will be, a blank ballot folded up. So you're going to take that out. You do need a witness. And there will be one more envelope. So,
Lots of envelopes.
Lots of envelopes. Okay. This is where you're going to fill out the information for yourself. If you needed assistance actually filling out your ballot and you mark that on your absentee application, we'll also send instructions for the assistant so that they know exactly what to do and how to make sure that this is filled out completely. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you need to make sure the information that matches your voting record is filled out on this ballot. And you need your signature and a signature of a witness, and then the date. So then what's going to happen is you vote your ballot, you take it out of the A envelope, vote your ballot, put it inside the B envelope, and then once that's done, you're going to put it in the return envelope, sealed inside of here, and send it back to us. Now, it's really important.
Yeah.
So United States Post Office is a fantastic service. But we have found that even though we get these wonderful usage of this election mail, official election mail, sometimes mail doesn't move as fast as we need it to.
Exactly.
You can request a ballot be mailed to you up to 5 p.m. on October 31st. That leaves just 7 days for us to send you a ballot and you to fill it out and send it back.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so we're highly encouraging people, get your request in for mail ballot as soon as possible, because if you do not have this back to us by 7 p.m. on November 7th, we cannot count it.
Right.
And we did have a question from
great.
Cindy, who was
Okay.
asking about how to get an absentee ballot.
Okay, Cindy. Here we
Great
go.
question. So we have a bunch of ways that you can get an absentee ballot mailed to you. The first step is you can go onto our website, which is fairfaxcounty.gov/elections.
Right.
We have a special absentee page where you can actually download a form, and you can fill that form out. You can mail it to us. You can fax it to us. You can also email it to us as an attachment.
Great.
You can come in
Easy.
person and fill
Right.
one of those forms out.
Right.
And what's nice now is that the Virginia Department of Elections at vote.virginia.gov has put a piece on the online voter registration system that allows registered voters to request an absentee ballot via the internet. And so once we receive that, we'll send the ballot to you. So there's plenty of methods. If you have no access to those, you can call our office, and we can send one to you directly.
Okay, great. And what's the phone number to call the office?
So the phone number for the office is area code 703-222-0776. Or you can email us at voting@fairfaxcounty.gov.
Great. Okay. So we've walked you through in-person absentee voting and the mail-in absentee voting. There's a couple of critical dates that everyone should be aware of, and I think the first one is voter registration deadline. Can you tell us that, and what else is happening with voter registration?
Okay, so voter registration deadline, October 16th. It's kind of, we're using that date to pivot a few other things on. So if you remember, there's a lot of activity for us going on that day. Voter registration, 5 p.m. inside of our offices here, which will be interesting because we are actually open till 7 p.m. that day in all of our satellite locations, but we have to have it by 5 p.m. that day in the office.
Right.
If you do it online through the vote.virginia.gov, you have up until 11:59 p.m. on October 16th. Now, last year, right before the election, everybody and their brother and their uncle and their sister jumped on at the same time on October 16th. I am right there with everybody. I am definitely a procrastinator. But one of the challenges that we saw is it slowed the system down.
Right.
The state's doing a lot of improvements to make sure the system stays up and running, but don't hesitate.
Yeah.
If you have moved in the last few months or the last year, go online right now. Go to our website. We will make sure that you get updated and get that squared away right now. But October 16th is the deadline for voter registration.
Right. And folks, we have more than 680,000 active registered voters in the county. And so, but if you have moved to another location in the county, if you got married and legally changed your name, and there's some other reasons, but you make sure that you update, because people generally will forget that they need to update their voter registration, and you won't be able to vote if your information is not updated. So please take a couple minutes, go to vote.virginia.gov and do the updating. If you have any questions, you can also always call the Office of Elections for that too. Speaking of knowing things, I'm sorry, let's go back to some dates.
Okay.
So the deadline, so we have in-person absentee voting. How long does that go on?
So we'll have this going on all the way until November 4th. That is the last day. That's a Saturday, and that will be from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on all the Saturdays. Now, starting next weekend, not this weekend, sorry guys, the weather is going to be beautiful this weekend, so we are all taking a little break and enjoying it. But starting September 30th, we're going to open up all of our locations from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturdays through November 4th.
Right.
So on October 16th, the registration deadline, we will open our satellite locations at 3:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. for every weekday. So Monday through Friday, we'll have those locations open. But our main office, beginning October 16th, will be open from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. So for all the commuters who have a late commute, you'll have every location beginning October 16th during the day to be able to get there by 7 p.m.
Right. And it's also good to know, especially for college students, that we are closed on Columbus Day, October 9th.
Yep.
So you won't be able to absentee vote in person on October 9th.
Right.
Lots of other locations, dates, and times that you can absentee vote. There's a lot of information, and it's all on their website, so you can go on and check out to see what location is closest to you, what time is best for you. All that information is on fairfaxcounty.gov/elections.
Yep, so we have a special page just with all those places, the locations, the hours. Hopefully a little bit later in the absentee voting, we'll also have an interactive map that'll actually show locations with their wait times. It's really our goal to make sure that we don't have any wait times, but sometimes we'll get a little bit of a crowd. Weekends tend to be pretty busy, but we want to make sure that if we do have a wait at one, you might be able to see a closer location that you can get in and out of pretty quick.
Okay. Lots and lots of information. We have lots of stuff that we'll be telling you. I'm sorry.
So while we're talking about dates, we got to mention
right.
one more. So really important. I did touch on it.
Okay.
October 31st, Halloween. That's the last day to request an absentee ballot to be mailed to you. So like I mentioned, that only gives you 7 days to return it, for us to send it and you to return it. So we're encouraging all voters, if you vote by absentee by mail,
Yes.
ask for it early. But
Yes.
that's the last day, and what's interesting about that one is that it has to be in our office by 5 p.m. that day. You cannot postmark your absentee application. You can't send it to another registrar's office. It has to be in this office by 5 p.m. On that day for us to get a ballot out to you.
Right, and you're all going to be busy trick-or-treating on Halloween,
Yep.
so you don't want to be worrying about getting your application. Lots of information out there. We want you to stay updated on everything that's going on with this election and voting. A couple of key places, please take a few moments and go to Fairfax Alerts, that's at fairfaxcounty.gov alerts, and you will get information, you'll be able to subscribe to information from the Office of Elections. You'll also be able to subscribe for lots of other things, including emergencies. But please take a moment. It comes directly to you. You can pick where you want to get this information, whether by email or text,
email.
multiple devices. You will get the information from us. And we promise we won't overload you. It's only when we have key information that we need to get out. Another good place to get regular updates is on Twitter at Fairfax Votes. And we'll also be providing information on our main county page at Fairfax County. And always, you can check with the Office of Elections, our webpage. Everything will be up to date on there, and that's fairfaxcounty.gov elections. And then also to contact the office directly, and that contact information.
So if you're going to call our office, area code 703-222-0776. You can email our office for anything at voting@fairfaxcounty.gov.
Okay, great. So thank you very much for joining us. We have some folks here who want to vote, which is awesome. And we'll be back to you soon with more information about election 2017 and voting in Fairfax County.